All right, Patriots-Texans will be here faster than Will Anderson crashing into Drake May at some point on Sunday. I'm just going to say it. It's inevitable. This is how Houston rolls defensively. But the Patriots nonetheless favored at home for what should be, I think, maybe the best game of the divisional round playoffs. So I'm thrilled to have a guy who we've had on before. It's been way too long. Derrik Klassen of the Athletic Football Show, back now with the full power of a mustache. And you just did your own show about this game. Am I right that this is the best game of the weekend?
I think it probably is. I mean, especially for me being, anyone who's heard me on the show before knows how much I love Drake May. So to get Drake May versus, to me, the best defense in football. Like, I know the Seahawks are really great too, but stylistically, I just love that the Houston guys fly around and just want to kill you every snap. And so this to me is like perfect football.
Yeah, I agree. Having covered, a Bill Belichick defense for the majority of my career and watched one, I'm always a little resistant to the defense that walks in and says, we do what we do. You know what we're running. We know what we're running, and that's just what it is. Because I'm like, that's not fun. We should be spinning the dial. We should have the wrinkles, all of these different terms we have for schematic diversity. Houston doesn't do that. It doesn't need to do that. I think this is going to be an awesome game at 3 p.m. on Sunday. So we've changed up the preview format here because, look, you do so many of these episodes, you like to change it up, unlike the Texans. But first, I need to remind everyone, this is the Pats Interference Podcast, part of the pliable, perspicacious CLNS Media Network. And there's some big news today in that, flipping to the Patriots defense for a second, Christian Gonzalez looks like he's going to play. He was a full participant in practice, whether he had a full-on concussion, as it would seem to be when you go into the concussion protocol, or is Mike Vrabel's like subtly gone, well, they took him out of the game, which is different than saying my man was concussed. He's gone through very quickly in the protocol that he should play. On the other hand, Nico Collins has not practiced this week for the Texans, and CJ Stroud throwing to Nico Collins is big business. Throwing to everyone else is a very different story. So this is a matchup that's fundamentally changed the way I look at this game a little bit. Texans were also without old pal Trent Brown and Danico Autry, who, if you listened or followed all today to Pat's Twitter, found out he's got 14 block kicks in his career. So that's probably the last we'll talk about Danico Autry, but something on the front end. Now, I have a question for you that has been posed to me in a way I never thought this would be like a bigger piece of my life, in that I have people going, hey, what's wrong with CJ Stroud? Like, what happens in this man brain when it looks like there are pop rocks just going off and he freezes or throws that kind of flippy interception to Pittsburgh? Because if you only watch that wild card win, you would think this is a walkover for the Patriots, but that's obviously not who he is, at least not mostly.
I think he's a little bit broken in terms of his pocket presence. I still think the accuracy is still there. I think when he gets outside of the pocket, you still see some really nice throws. I think he's still generally a very aggressive passer, which, given the way he's seeing the field right now, can be a little bit of an up and down. But I would say that, to me, it is how you see him manage the pocket. Because if you look at some of his best stuff as a rookie, or even some of his best moments, maybe last season, even though that was still an up and down year, he would get to the top of his drop and he would be so confident that he could either stick there and throw it regardless of the pressure, or he could maneuver up a little bit. He would stay with his shoulders pointed at the line of scrimmage. He would just stay in like a throwing posture. I think when you watch that Steelers game, or even going back to like the Seattle game really early this year, he just gets like, he drops his eyes, drops his shoulders, and he starts like sprinting around a little bit, which, like, if you're Kyler Murray, that's fine because you're the best athlete on the field. When you're CJ Stroud, who's a nice athlete but not that special, it becomes an issue where you kind of just end up boxing yourself in and not finding answers. And so I think we saw the worst of that against the Steelers. I'm going to guess he's not that bad every week, but the Patriots do some weird stuff that could potentially get him, I think, spinning just a little bit.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that later because that whole piece about pressure is really kind of the line of demarcation with him, which it's funny because the deeper I get into this game, Derek, the more I find myself circling back to like the most basic bland analysis like that of just, hey, if you pressure the quarterback, good things happen. If Drake May doesn't turn the ball over, Patriots might be okay despite facing, again, I agree with you, I think the best defense in football, not just because they're second by DVOA against the run and the pass and third in turnovers and second by EPA. It's just they know where you're going to attack because they're happy to show you their cards. And it's almost like setting a trap every single play in addition to the fact that they're flying around. But big picture, the Texans here, 13-5, 19th in offense by DVOA, second on defense, 11th on special teams. we start with the 30-6 win over Pittsburgh. They beat the Colts at the end of the season, went on the road to beat the Chargers. Like, this is a team that's found different ways to win, but understanding that when they take the field, they've already kind of dictated terms with their defense. So let's start there with question number one of the big 7 questions that'll determine this game. How effectively do the Patriots neutralize Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter? Because that is where everything starts, I think.
I highly doubt that they will. And like that's kind of all this comes down to.
Yeah.
I know Morgan Moses is supposed to play, but him being a little bit banged up against these guys potentially, I think is a huge issue. And then when you think about Will Campbell, I think he's had a nice season for a rookie. You still see him against a lot of the guys who are a little bit longer in terms of arm length on the edge.
Oh,
They
no.
can give him some trouble. Danielle Hunter is long. Will Anderson is long. They can both just like turn that shoulder a little bit, get one arm into your chest, and just do whatever they want. So I think both of those guys have pretty good matchups here. And so if you're the Patriots, you're probably going to have to lean into maybe a little bit more heavy personnel than maybe you would want to at certain points. You're probably going to have to run the ball, especially along the interior to me. Like their interior players are nice. Tommy Togiai is solid. Sheldon Rankins is good. Their backers are good. I would still rather run at them than Will Anderson. And so you probably want to control the game that way. And then they actually are, we talked about this a little bit on our division preview. You can get the Texans a little bit with running back screens. The problem is like how many of those can you really call in a game? You know what I mean? It's like that can be a nice change up once or twice, but you can't build the whole thing out of it. And that doesn't really apply to wide receiver screens. Like when they throw wide receiver screens at Jalen Petrie, Kamari Lassiter, Derek Stingley, those dudes tackle it. Like that's not going anywhere. And so I really think it's ultimately just going to be a game of how many times can Drake make a miss?
Yeah, and there's some play action numbers too that if you chop them in a certain way, which is also just the world that we live in when you and I have all these numbers at our fingertips and fans have some too if you pay for whatever subscription, True Media probably being the best, but you got your Sports Info Solutions, your PFFs. Like, there's just no way to slice this in that, oh, this is where you go at Houston. So there's the starting point. But for the Patriots, the reason that the edge rush is the starting point is that it is the first way that they will stop what the Patriots do best, which is throw the football, all thanks to Drake May. And so I'm with you. It's not that it's already a lost cause. It's just that you have to lower your expectations if you're the Patriots about what you're going to be able to do against a duo that Josh McDaniels called today the best in the league. Any pass rushers, these two are at the top. That's just what it is. And I'm glad you brought up running the ball because this, I think, is going to be a long game for them where they're going to trust their defense to say, like, we'll hold on to CJ Stroud without Nico Collins for a little bit. And over time, running wham, running trap, the Texans' numbers talk about cutting things up against duo, actually allow a positive EPA per play, which I had to look at twice because I just didn't think there's anything there with a run play that might happen against the Texans. The bigger personnel, though, is a question to me because Patriots have leaned into that at the end of the season. I've talked a lot about it. Houston obviously leads the league with these jumbo packages, but their defense is giving up 1.7 yards a carry, and the success rate is pretty ugly. So where and how do you see those bigger personnel groupings coming into play?
I think your best bet is probably Jack Westover. I actually think he's like kind of a nice player.
Hey, welcome to the fan club.
Yeah, and so getting him to, I think, move around and be like a movable piece, because I do think if you're just asking Houston's linebackers if you're just letting them trigger on stuff, they're going to go hit you and they're going to be in the backfield. They're going to chase you down. I do think every now and then you can get those linebackers, especially Henry To'oTo'o, a little bit of like cat chasing a laser. And so if you can actually get Jack Westover on the field, kind of keep them in base, and then use him and some of the other tight ends as like moving pieces all around the field, whether it's slicing, getting them in motion, whatever it is, I think that is probably your best way to attack this defense.
Yeah, EJ Speed as well. I mean, again, when you're going down to the third linebackers, it's just hard to say like, oh, we've really got something here. There's another run that I think will come into play because I'm expecting the Patriots to see a ton of man coverage. The Patriots are expecting that they'll see a ton of man coverage. So in those situations, throwing some crack toss, like it's not going to be like you said with, the running back screens you can run all the time. Like these are kind of constraint plays. But when you're changing the angles on Will Anderson or Danielle Hunter, and here comes from the side, whether it's Hunter Henry in motion or a receiver, if you trust them to handle that edge, and then get out behind two pulling linemen, that could help because then you're activating those corners in run defense. And like they tackle well enough, but it's not dealing with Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter if you execute those plays well. The interesting thing to me is, the one comparison for Hunter and Anderson is probably on the Patriots schedule, Myles Garrett, if there's any comparison to Myles Garrett. But the tape I found more instructive to go back and visit was what they did against the Giants. And this ties into what you just brought up with Jack Westover, because in that game where you've got Abdul Carter on one side and Brian Burns on the other, just like you have Will Anderson on one side and Danielle Hunter on the other, they played two back about 20% of the time. And this is, a very pro two back offense, very positive two back offense. But what that allowed Drake May to do is to have guys who were going to release into the flat and routes. And some of this was Pony, some of this was with Jack Westover, and chip on their way out there. So he's got easy outlets if things go wrong downfield or he needs someone there. In addition, is going to slow down the pass rush. Do you see anything there as like a sustainable, we can go to this more often than the screens or certain concepts out of that?
I think potentially, I almost wonder how much of that they do and actually just keep guys in protection and don't
Mm,
really let them release. Because to me, I think letting guys like chip and then release is really good against defenses who have good pass rushers. And then maybe the second and third levels don't tackle very well, which is true of the Giants. They have really good pass rushers. Everybody else on that defense is bad.
sucks.
Yeah. Houston is the opposite, right? Or they're different. Their pass rushers are awesome, but also when they're tackling in the flat, they are the best team in the league at that. And so I almost wonder how much, like, I don't really think allowing them to release is really the option. I almost wonder if you just like, I really love split back gun because this actually does allow you to give
Mm,
very clear edges in help on those edge rushers and force them to win inside. And I actually do think if you're like forcing both Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter to win through the tackle, Drake May is actually pretty comfortable just like standing there with a guy in his face and throwing a ball. And so I actually think that that's probably the better use of two back if they're gonna be throwing.
yeah. One other thing, the moving pockets have to be a part of this. This is where, the Todd Downing and the Thomas Brown influence in the offense, I think, is really helpful. Patriots are third in EPA this season when passing with moving pockets. And some people have brought up the scrambling. Like, I listen to Mina and Bill Barnwell like any wise football fan should. And they bring up, oh, the Texans give up 9.2 yards per carry against scrambles, most in the league. And I just think that's suffering from a little bit of a small sample in that, sure, like Drake May is probably going to hit one or two scrambles, but it's not a well that I can go and revisit because they only allow about two per game. And there were games where they just didn't allow scrambles at all against a defense that's really trying to chase you down. So I don't think his legs, at least out of structure or off schedule, are going to be as big of a deal as the pocket movement and some extension to throw rather than run.
That's like the scrambles is like a survivor bias thing, right? Where it's
Yeah.
like they
Yeah.
almost never actually let the quarterback out. It's just that if the one guy who gets clean misses, the way that they rush the passer can be so chaotic that if that guy misses, you can get out. But they just don't miss very often. You're usually going down, and so that probably is that. The moving pockets, I think maybe they can use like some of their boot game because kind of talking about the linebackers again, they will fast flow and guys will bite on stuff. So you can maybe get Drake May out on the edge, but saying that like, oh, we're going to get our athletic quarterback out on the edge versus X pass rusher, that's really cool until it's Danielle Hunter. And then it's not as fun anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, which is all to say, like, the recipe that they're gonna have to cook up, they're not majoring in anything. There's not a dominant flavor. It's a little bit of everything to kind of keep Houston not guessing, but just not totally comfortable in what they think they're going to see or make it simple for them. This is just like facing a dominant player in the NBA, right? Like we just can get a hand in the face. We can just try to get to their spots before they do. We know they're going to hit shots over us with all of that happening anyway. But at least at the end of the day, we can put our heads on our pillows and say, "Yeah, we tried." Um, Whenever I do say there, one last thing, I think the hit rate on that is like 10% because one other thing did just hit me before we go on to question number two. I think they need to take their shots for a defense that's about average in terms of total explosive plays allowed, but specifically when Hunter and Anderson are getting a breather, which will be hard at sometimes to kind of match up. But I mean, when they get one-on-one coverage downfield, even if it's just to chase DPI, because these DBs and Derek Stingley and Lassiter are really, I don't want to say handsy, but like they're going after the ball and don't care if they get an occasional flag. That has to be a path that they try to walk down, even if it results in kind of an arm punt here or there, because I just don't think they're going to be able to drive the ball 10, 12 play drives against this defense.
I couldn't agree more. Like this is a defense where they will let you challenge them. Like they're going to play a lot of one football and just let their corners run down the field. And even the best guys sometimes are going to lose. Stingley the less so, but Lassiter you can get down the field every now and then. Some of Houston's worst moments and drives this year have been because he's drawing a DPI or he's getting beat over the top. And so it's probably not going to happen often. And teams don't actually get to challenge him there because Danielle Hunter or Will Anderson are in their face before it happens. But like you said, if they can just like block it up really well on the one play, or when those guys are off the field, I do think you have to challenge them.
Yeah. It's just it's still amazing to me here on Thursday evening, having thought about this game and broken it down for 72 hours, how they just line up 4 down. We're not going to blitz. We're not going to disguise. We're going to play quarters or cover 3 on early downs. Cover 1. Maybe we'll blitz if we feel like it on 3rd down. And that's it. Like, this is just teams know what they're going to get. And so I say take those one-on-one shots. It's not like, oh, we have to figure out when the time is right. You'll know because they'll tell you.
Yeah, yes, you don't have to find them. They will be there the whole game for 60 minutes. You just got to attack it.
Yeah. All right. Number 2, going to the other side of the ball. Does the Patriots blitz reach CJ Stroud? Because we already hit on this. Like, Stroud is a different quarterback because of that pocket presence that seems a little bit broken, as you put it. The Patriots are not getting pressure with 4, even against the Chargers, where they treated Justin Herbert like a pinata's pinata. They only got pressure with a 4-man rush 27% of the time. When they blitzed, that went up to 47%. How do you see this battleground kind of playing out when the Patriots bring extra guys at Stroud?
I think, especially with Nico Collins likely missing the game, you just blitz the hell out of him. One, because of kind of what we just talked about too, where he's dropping his eyes, and I think he's struggling a little bit too. The other thing on top of blitzing that I actually think the Patriots, what I think they've done really well, is dropping guys out, or like they bring them up to the line of scrimmage and they use them as spies. Especially in this last game, I thought they had a phenomenal game plan to deal with Justin Herbert. Like, there were times where they would like stunt the end and the defensive tackle and let the mugged up linebacker loop over him. And it looks like he's going to rush, but then he kind of just stops at the line of scrimmage and is waiting for Justin Herbert. They used the down safeties, like Jalen Hawkins blitzed. It felt like half of the snaps in that game, which I thought was really interesting. They had a couple where they like stacked the linebacker on top of the safety in the B gap. So you don't know like who's going to come where out of that stack. And then they both popped out. Like, I really think the Patriots over the last 5 or 6 weeks, would you say, have really started to do a lot more interesting stuff up front. And Houston still has not proven that they can pick that stuff up consistently.
So since their bye week, which was 5.5 weeks ago, they're 3rd in blitz rate in the league, 38%. And to your point about the diversity, like that absolutely keyed a lot of the pressure I think they got against Herbert, who I think mentally suffered as much physical anguish as he did in the second half. Speaking of the first half, just trying to sift through all of that. Because, yeah, Christian Ellis, I said after the game, like I'm sure Justin Herbert going to the supermarket next thinks he's like around the corner the way that he had spied all that time and just kind of
He's
waiting.
He's going to pop up behind the bakery.
Yeah, exactly. Is this what you're looking for? And I think there's something that they could tap into again with that, because this just has to be their identity. And I asked around the locker room saying, like, there's no good way to put it, because you'd be like, oh, what does the blitz mean to you? How do you know you're successful? Like, this is all very obvious football stuff, but I just think this is who they are now, understanding that you can trust, obviously, Christian Gonzalez and Carlton Davis in coverage. And this is a strength that you can lean on and leverage, but also a weakness that you're trying to paper over against good quarterbacks and good teams. And the way that you can do that is not just lining up as the Texans will and say, I'm coming, I'm blitzing, I'm dropping out. It's the disguise piece. So I do think they can get there. But this is an area where if they don't, again, it's like Jaden Higgins might be the only one that you're kind of worried about in a jump ball scenario. Like Nico Collins being out, this is where it hurts them the most. There's no chuck it up, DPI, big play down the field. Is that like, am I wrong? Is there anyone else beating? I mean, Dalton Schultz for 12 yards, like, cool. I'll take that.
I'm not scared of, and like Jaden Higgins has been solid for a rookie who is your number 2, but that's it. That is different when you're playing against like Christian Gonzalez and the rest of how good this Patriots secondary has been. And also the other thing I would say about the pass rush, I think even though Trent Brown is probably going to miss this game, I actually think the tackle play for Houston has been fine. The interior is where you can really beat the hell out of them. That's where the New England's best pass rushers are. And so I think even in some of these plays where they're rushing 4 and they're not even being that creative, I still think that they can probably get some pretty good pressure.
Zach Kerr talked to us today, defensive play caller, who is now like every national media's favorite. Hey, did you know this guy is like just only coached the offense or defense for 5 years and took over this year? Oh my God, look at him. And he's had moments. Don't get me wrong, but Zach's been here for months. He said today, quote, when Stroud's in a clean pocket, he is deadly, which to me is like, okay, your typical flowery praise of the opposing quarterback in the lead up to a game. To me, that says this is the whole game for us, is can we make him uncomfortable, move him off his spot, trigger that stuff where maybe it's PTSD from last year, right? And how he just got beat to hell. Maybe it's not. We'll see. But that is a big piece of the game, and I'm really curious how and where they get to that. Did you mentioned some of the structure stuff that you'd like, but against Houston and how they like to protect, are there certain blitzes that if people are at home going, I think they're going to get to this or this type of pressure? Like, would you expect anything in particular Sunday?
I'm trying to dictate the slide of the center and make their backs pick somebody up in the A gap. Their backs
Mm.
still cannot do it. And so anything that you can do to get the back in the A gap right in front of CJ Stroud's face, that to me is the way to do this.
Yeah. Sounds like trouble. All right, next question. We are asking, how do the Patriots wide receivers fare against man coverage? And this is another one where everyone felt probably pretty good. The way that we just described, CJ Stroud almost has no shot, or you're just going to blitz the hell out of him. Everyone should want their defense just to go blitz the hell out of them. But first, I got to remind folks, we have a new sponsor in this podcast, which is really well timed for me. Just had a baby, and I'm starting to think about things bigger, frankly, than CJ Stroud versus the blitz. And among those is where she's going to go to school, saving for college, and then also life insurance. And thankfully, Ethos has popped in to tell you that they make getting life insurance fast and easy. This is 100% online. You get a quote in seconds from Ethos, apply in minutes to get same day coverage. Like if you're looking for life insurance, this is the easiest and best place to stop by right now. There's no medical exam. You just have to answer a few simple questions. As of March 2025, Business Insider named them the #1 no medical exam instant life insurance provider. So there's your answer to trivia at the bar this week when you get asked about Business Insider March 2025. But the bottom line is you should protect your family with Ethos now by going to ethos.com/all32, ALL32. In as little as 10 minutes, you can get your free quote and up to $3 million in coverage at ethos.com/all32. That's ethos.com/all32, ethos.com/all32. Application times and rates may vary. So speaking of time, these receivers need to uncover better than they did last Sunday against the Chargers when I had May 1 of 5 for 7 yards with 3 sacks and 39 rushing yards, including the big scramble against man-to-man coverage. Do they do it?
I highly doubt it. And I still think that like down the field on some pure go balls, like you're just gonna have to take your shots, right? Like you're just gonna have to have a couple of instances where you do that. I think other than that, like I kind of just struggle to see it. Because I think even though the passing offense has been good and they've gotten moments from their receiver, like Kayshon Boutte to me is very specific in the ways that he wins, and it's gonna be doesn't really matter what coverage you play, just like chuck it to him down the field. I think Stephon Diggs is not the man beater that he used to be. I think he's actually gotten really good at like zone and like sifting through spots with Drake May and having good chemistry there. But again, that's not uncovering against Derek Stingley the way that maybe Stephon Diggs could do 3 years ago. And then I just don't really have a whole lot of faith that anyone else can do it. And so I really, again, think this is going to be a game where Drake May kind of just has to be the better quarterback. And he's either going to have to place a couple of really, really well placed, like, you always say you can't defend a perfect pass. And I do think that he can do that. His touch accuracy is incredible. Or somehow get out of the pocket and scramble more than almost any quarterback has been able to do against this Texans team.
Yeah, they're going to have to break one of the Texans' strengths in this area, passing again, whether it's May scrambling or you're defeating, they're second against tight ends by DVOA, third against running backs. They love the kind of stutter go to Stevenson down the sideline that have scored on that recently.
And that did work for the Raiders, by the way.
Yeah.
The Raiders, Genty got open and got a touchdown over Toa doing that.
Yeah. And look, when because they went a little bit more empty. I want to say if it wasn't LA, it was the season finale against Miami, which again, very different defense. But the point being, it just kind of clarifies those matchups. And if you're trying to you pick your poison, at least lay out and do me the courtesy, put all the poisons out in front of me so that I can take the one that I would like. Empty does that for Drake May, who not only then has the space and time to go scramble if he so chooses. And for people who are sick of me harping on the man-to-man coverage piece, which I've done since the middle of the season, when after they played Cleveland, I said, I think good teams are going to challenge the Patriots the way that the Browns just did, because they got 5 sacks playing man coverage. And I get Myles Garrett is the front end of that. But look, it's better than playing zone. Here we are with that stat line. Again, 1 of 5 for 7 yards last Sunday. And here's Kayshon Boutte today. Quote, at the end of the day, we're getting man coverage. We've got to beat it. It's that simple. So this is, I think, as big of a battleground as the Patriots offensive tackles versus Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter. Because again, if either of them win early, that helps the other grouping, meaning the Patriots receivers and their offensive tackles or vice versa. There is, though, a player who I don't want to talk a ton about has kind of frankly been collecting dust for 2 months that would really help here. His name's Pop Douglas, and there are some okay numbers when the Texans do play man against how they defend the slot versus wide receivers. Again, teams will put a bunch of different players in the slot. But that to me, at least as a guy who is both quick and has good long speed, is intriguing to me because they know what they're going to get. Houston's very good at this, and just you have to crack it somehow.
I think if they're trying to win down the field against man coverage or even like in the intermediate area, I think I struggle to see it a little bit with Douglas. However, if they do a really good job with like picks and bunches and really getting guys moving before the snap, Douglas probably is their best option there, which I think we've seen them have some success before. But again, this defense is just so good. Sometimes it's hard for me to see it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's again, if we go back to, okay, they're going to run the ball to protect themselves against that pass rush, and you're playing with bigger bodies. Not really thrilled about throwing, stick routes to Austin Hooper or, any kind of inbreakers at this point with this defense because they're just not going to separate. And you can win, obviously, with contested catches. That's what the Patriots have done most of the year. And Diggs, frankly, they might double as teams have finally gotten wise to on third down to take away the guy that may wants to go to in high leverage situations. So this is just an area where it looks bad for the Patriots. I just think it's going to come down to, I've talked about the running game forever. This is not going to be an efficient down-to-down operation. You need to hit your home runs when you swing for the fences. And in this case, it's not Trayvon Henderson taking, pin and pull around the left side for 40 yards and a touchdown. It's DPI to booty, even if you have to swallow some deep incompletions over and over again. All right, number 4. This is going to be the most boring of these 7 questions, so we can kind of speed through it. But I really think that in a tight game, this could swing things. Does the Patriots game management factor at his advantage? Meaning, DeMeco Ryans is among the most conservative coaches on fourth down and with the game in the entire league. Forget just the playoffs, the entire league. Vrabel is not. And we saw even some smaller stuff with the substitutions telling everyone, just take your time. Get off the field against the Chargers, who were substituting for God knows what reason. Do you think this is possibly as intriguing as I do?
I think with some of the weird game management stuff, yes. Like what you just mentioned with like the Chargers trying to sub when they probably shouldn't have been, when they thought they maybe could have caught the Patriots, and the Patriots were like, no, we're going to take our time. We know that we can do this. I do think in some of those ways that they can probably get an advantage. To me, the like fourth down decision making, I think that's less of like a DeMeco Ryans doesn't get it or doesn't understand it. That's just like do you really trust this offense to ever get you 2 yards? You know what I mean? Like I think that is the problem. And I think they almost would rather be like, you know what, we'll let our defense back on the field. We'll flip the field, try to get 15 yards that way. And we'll be fine. And so I think that element of it is like less an actual mental battle and just the coaching staff being like, we don't trust these guys.
Yeah, I think that's fair. To me, this comes up because we saw the Chargers, who in a list of coaches who are most conservative on fourth down. I mean, Jim Harbaugh's at the bottom. Like DeMeco Ryans is not there in the basement. He's a step or two above. 4th and 2 at the Patriots 3. This was their third possession. And I get they had turned it over on downs already. But facing the worst short yardage run defense in the league, or at least for most of the season, if the Chargers had scored a touchdown there as opposed to kicking a field goal, the complexion of that game changes entirely, understanding it was 9-3 going into the fourth quarter and 6-3 at halftime. That would have been 6-7. Let's all do it at halftime. And to me, that's where I think Houston, you might catch a break against them. And in the inverse being, if you're the Patriots and you go for it and you get it, that again allows you to kind of sit on Houston as you would like an older sibling just trying to run out the clock. You know what I mean? Like if CJ Stroud is now confused and has to throw in the pressure of playing catch up because you nailed one of these early fourth downs that I just don't think Houston's going to go for, that's an advantage. Obviously, the execution is a bigger part than just making the call and phoning it in. But to me, that's a gap here that you don't often see, I think, with playoff coaches that could come into play.
And I think actually specifically like that example, the ones where it's like inside the 5 and you are potentially giving up the opportunity to score a touchdown, like especially if you're the Texans, you're not going to get many opportunities to score a touchdown. You should probably take them. The ones that are more like maybe it's a midfield 4th and 3 on the plus 47. A good team should probably go for that, and you should probably trust that you can get that. This Texans offense, man, just punt it, pray your defense bails you out, and just live to see another drive.
Since we're talking about them, and normally it would be at this point in the pod where we're just diving into the opponent's offense versus Patriots defense and this and that, but we're trying to bounce around here. What else do people not know? Like we said, oh, Nico Collins is out, and Jaden Higgins is good as a rookie number 2, and your offensive line stinks. And like Woody Marks had 100 yards last weekend, and I don't expect that to replicate. But like Dalton Schultz is their leading receiver, and I think will be a matchup problem for the Patriots. But what else are we missing here?
I would say one thing that probably nobody cares about at all with the Houston offense, because I think we all think the offensive line is bad in general, and it is. Rookie Ariante Ursery had a really good season. I actually thought, not like special. Like I thought like Kelvin Banks was better as a rookie tackle. Armand Membu was better, but like he had a reasonably good rookie season, and so I've wanted to shout him out whenever I get the chance.
Where you didn't mention Will Campbell, where if we're ranking rookie tackles, how does that look?
Will Campbell's tough because there is still. I think he was fine, and I think actually in the run game he was one of the better rookie tackles. I still just like his ceiling as a pass protector. Sometimes it just gives me the ick. And I think that's probably like a sizes thing with me. Like he's got the short arms, and I've seen what it looks like against some of the best guys. Whereas like I just watched the guys like Kelvin Banks who are just like God made like 10 of those guys. I kind of prefer those guys.
Planet Theory guys.
Yes, yeah. The Planet Theory guys.
Yeah. All fair. To me, the way I've looked at it, and this isn't to, give Will more credit than he deserves. It's just I think the history of offensive tackles, specifically rookies, especially 21-year-olds, like the pass protection is just an abject disaster historically. And the fact that it's been passable for him has been really impressive to me. Now, passable doesn't get you by in the playoffs against elite pass rushes. But we'll see how he fares. I mean, they'll give him help, and then sometimes it's helped, other times it's not. Myles Garrett in Cleveland being the clearest example, where he gave up 2 sacks with help as Hunter Henry was standing next to him. Granted, that's Myles Garrett, but I think that's fair. All right, number 5. This is a little spicier, and this could even out the problems the Patriots will have blocking on the edges. The Patriots might have with separating from man coverage, and maybe it won't. What do you think Josh McDaniels has up his sleeve? Because there's no way in hell he goes into this with just a French vanilla bean game plan.
So honestly, kind of like you were talking about earlier, you are not going to beat this Houston Texans defense like down to down. We're going to move the ball 5-6 yards at a time in the run game and get that. That's not happening. You have to hunt for some of the explosives, and that's probably going to come down to some more kind of like in the run game you were talking about, less staple concepts and more like constraint plays or one-off stuff. Almost the way that like the Jaguars were running the ball really, really well against Buffalo. Almost none of that was like staple core run concepts. It was like really weird, like we're motioning guys and it's just like flashing lights everywhere. I do think they have to have some of that stuff. And then we're probably going to see a trick play or two. And they should. Like you absolutely have to hunt for that. And we saw that they're willing to do it. Just last week they tried it. The effectiveness of that, it's up for grabs. And, we'll see if they can do a little bit better this week. But I do think you have to hunt for some of that stuff.
Just like 3rd, 4th drive with your undrafted rookie throwing a pass is just, I mean, Drake May was open. It worked. And people who want to get on Josh McDaniels, like this is kind of the Rorschach test, of, oh, it worked. It just didn't execute versus what an idiot, depending on wherever you're coming from. But I just think there's got to be something involving Trevion Henderson, because if you're looking for an explosive, it's got to be a guy where you don't need the perfect execution to get you there. It's just give me the one-on-one and let the guy take care of the rest. There was a play that Buffalo ran against them in that Thursday night game going way back that I've filed away because you see more of this across the league. I have not seen it from the Patriots, but I think would work really well here. Can we get a hook and lateral, please?
See, that qualifies as a trick play for me. I'm kind of into that. Yeah.
Yeah. I would love that.
I'm kind of into that.
I don't know if there's a person on earth who's anti hook and lateral. They would be anti hook and ladder the way that we call these, but call whatever you want. I would love to see one. And I think that's something where, look, I don't know if it's in the playbook or not. We've seen the double pass. You've got the non-quarterback passes. That's cool. Double reverses into a screen, double reverses just as it is. Direct snap stuff, which is really just actually basic football, that trick plays. Give me lateral. That's what I'm looking for here. Because the Drake May quarterback run stuff and option, concepts is, first of all, going to endanger him. Number 2, it does not count. It's just option football. So that's the one thing that I have here. And how that involves Trevion, I don't know. But that's why Josh McDaniels is paid a lot more than I am.
I also, honestly, in this game, I would not want to run Drake May. And I know that's probably going to limit you a little bit, but this is just a defense where I'm not exposing the quarterback to extra hits. They're already going to get you. Let's not do that.
Yeah, ask Trevor Lawrence whether or not you want to take off against this defense, which granted was not his fault, but like had a lasting impact on him. All right, this is honestly my favorite question of the 6 that I put together, which is really kind of me to tell myself that you put together a nice question of the 6 of these. Uh, but before we name a wild card game changer, like if we look back and this is the, Austin Hooper game or someone like this, who is that player? You could put all the good information that Derek and I just gave you to good use on Sunday in a way that I can't because I won't. I don't like to do this with the NFL. I do this with the NBA. I do this with hockey games. I do this with other basketball. And this is over at Prize Picks, the number one best, easiest, simplest way to watch sports and win money with daily fantasy. You've heard me talk about Prize Picks before. We give you Prize Picks picks, which I'm about to do in a second because it's this easy. You pick a player, you pick a stat, you go more than, less than, touchdowns, rushing yards, receiving. This is not about spreads. This is not about teams. This is not about first. It's not about that. You just pick the players you like, the stats you like, make sure they're at least 2, put them in a lineup of up to 6 players, and that's it. But only at Prize Picks. And if you download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS, you'll get $50, 50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Now, Prize Picks, it's good to get a freebie. CJ Stroud. Derek, do you think he's going to throw for at least 1 passing yard?
Yard? God, I would hope
Yes.
so.
Okay, good. If you would like to play Prize Picks, that is basically your free square, not on the bingo card, but in your lineup. So lock in more than CJ Stroud, half a passing yard. That's it. Just 1 completion, downfield, boom, lock it in. And I will give you 2 here that I think will hit. Number 1, Christian Kirk, more than 37.5 receiving yards. And I get he was just in the background, like up on the shelf in a way that no one looked at him. Nico Collins, though, being out and Marcus Jones being the guy that the Texans will want to pick on in man coverage, who's in the slot is going to get the ball. Christian Kirk is going to be in the slot. He's going to get the ball more than 37.5 receiving yards. Now, you can't pair just him and CJ Stroud because you need players from different teams with Prize Picks. And this leads into my question number 6. I really think, as much as I have a soft spot for this player, Demario Douglas is going to have more than 18.5 receiving yards because if they do see as much, and there's your Prize picks of the week, as much man coverage as they think, as much as I think, you just have to get him on the field as someone who can separate quickly and create yak because there are just not that many pieces of low-hanging fruit that you can reach for against this defense. There might be none, but a guy who can separate and create after the fact, where he's been used more often in obvious passing situations, and he has the second most catches against man-to-man of all the receivers, despite playing 26% of the snaps. Boost that number, bump it up a little bit, and I think that'll lead to some more catches. I'm not, banking my life on it. Absolutely a Prize Picks lineup for sure. But like to me, it's just if we look back and say who came out of nowhere, he's number 1 with a bullet on my list.
I think if I had to pick a skill player, it probably is. Honestly, both Christian Kirk and Demario Douglas make sense, especially at those numbers, because you only really need 1 play. Like Christian Kirk had 2 of them in the last game, actually, that probably went over that total in general. And when you think about the way they're going to use Kirk, that probably makes sense. And then Douglas, yeah, if he just runs away from a guy one time, he gets there. Unfortunately, my pick for this is not a skill player and probably not somebody that you can. I'm not sure how deep Prize Picks goes, but I really think
it's okay. We gave Prize Picks our
this
time
is
in our picks. You can go anywhere you want now.
so I'm using this to my gain, and I mostly am using this to shout out a player I absolutely love on the Patriots. Khyiris Tonga
Yes.
might nuke this game. I think he's awesome, dude. Because I think people are potentially coming into this game looking at Houston having run the ball really well against the Steelers last week and being like, oh, well, maybe they've turned a new leaf and maybe they can do some of this stuff. The Steelers have Keanu Benton at nose, and he's a very explosive, like quick player. If you get 4 hands on him, he's got nothing. Khyiris Tonga is the opposite of that. I think if teams try to get 4 hands on him, Houston's not going to be able to move him. I think he's been really disruptive at points this year, even against really good offensive lines like Buffalo. I thought he had really good games in both of those. So I don't know, man. I think there's a chance that, in the stat sheet, you don't know however that's going to come up, but there's a chance that we're all watching the Tuesday film and being like, oh my God, Khyiris Tonga was incredible.
I mean, talk about my every Tuesday.
Yeah.
This is the most Khyiris Tonga friendly podcast I think you'll find anywhere, aside from if his cousin has one. Because, like you just said, I mean, it's not just like the immovable nose tackles that everyone in New England or grew up when I did, pre-Vince Wilfork. Like, let's go with the Ted Washington pulls or the Keith Trailer year. Recognize it's just the disruption that he's able to pair with that. Like, wherever he is a shade or a 3 technique, or sometimes they'll kick him out to a 5. He's getting the job done. I also saw this when I was looking up his stats today, because he talked and actually said he's optimistic to play. So like this seems to be going to be a factor. My man still has just half a career sack.
That's crazy. He's been around for a while.
And he basically said this summer he learned how to pass rush because he was just treated as first and second down run stuffer. And look, that's how I mocked him coming out of BYU in every mock draft I had that year, because I was just like the body type and Belichick history of D tackles, yada yada. He can rush the passer, and it's not in a big overwhelming way, but just like he's in your lap, and you really got to get rid of that thing. So I'm with you. And plus, if the Texans do play with as much 6 offensive linemen as they've been doing, which again leads the league over 100 snaps this year, I think well over 100. No, 200 on the dot. That invites the Patriots to play big personnel. And I don't think this is a game where other teams could hurt them. Sure, throwing at Jalen Hawkins and Craig Woodson and, get Jack Gibbons in there. Not a problem. Go for it. I don't want to do this if I'm Houston, to invite Kyrus Tonga and Milton Williams and Christian Barmore across my entire banged up offensive line. No way.
Yeah, I'd rather have the 5th DB on the field than have Kyrus Tonga on the field.
Yeah.
That's how I would approach it if I'm Houston.
Yeah. Circling back to my guy, Pop Douglas, like, look, I understand that he has had nothing really going in the last 2 months. And by nothing, I mean not 40 yards in a game, only one game with multiple catches, and that he's lost snaps to Stephon Diggs because they both play in the slot. He's not a great run blocker. And even Matt Collins, who led all Patriots receivers in offensive snaps, partly because of that run blocking and versatility. Him leaving the picture has not allowed Demario Douglas to bloom. That said, again, you need to win one-on-one. And I just think they're just going to have to give him a chance and survive with any of the missteps or misreads that he has, because get the ball in his hands and allow him to go to work. Again, 10 of 14 this season, got 10 of 14 target first man coverage, 179 yards and a touchdown versus PFF. This is, I don't know. I'm planting my flag. That's all. And it might be in the Boston Herald tomorrow. Who knows? But that's just where I'm at. Is there anyone from Houston that might be of a little bit of a danger that would fit here?
The only other thing that I think that we haven't talked about is Azeez Al-Shire in coverage. I actually think it's pretty good, and I think he runs up the seam incredibly well. And I think why that matters in this matchup is Drake May has proven consistently that he will be really aggressive over the middle of the field. And so I think depending on like if we get a C+ versus an A- game from Azeez Al-Shire in coverage, that actually could swing a little bit of like how many and how well New England can find some of their explosives.
Yeah. I mean, he's hit, this isn't up the middle, but so many hole shots on the corner. And that's like what opened up stuff on the other side. And that's where I'm watching the film. If I'm Houston, being like, I don't know. I mean, it was a couple flat 7 concepts, but just like if there's a way to bait him there, and at the same way, because those 2 throws, I think he loves. It's a seam throw because he's got great touch, and the hole shot. That's where I'm trying to lay some traps if I'm Houston. I don't know who that results in an interception or a pass breakup or whatever for, but those are smaller games within the game that I think might be problematic if they're willing to kind of tweak some of their base stuff or their rules or assignments or whatever it is. But yeah, down the seam makes some sense. All right, we've done 6. We're at 7. This one was the only piece of homework I gave you. So what is your question here that will decide Sunday's game?
That will decide Sunday's game.
Or just something we haven't covered that you're curious.
I mean, that was kind of it. The Azeez Al-Shire thing. It's just like, I really am curious about how well he's going to be able to do it. Because I think not that he or the linebackers are a weak link, but if you can get them anywhere in coverage, it is the linebackers rather than the safeties who are incredibly good. Jalen Petru's really good. All the corners are really good. And so I think it does depend on like how well they can attack a guy like him.
Yeah. Do you see anything? I mean, I know Kaimi Fairbairn's one of the better kickers in the league, like special teams wise. It's been so unpredictable for the Patriots, good and bad, that I just don't see a major investment here in terms of this conversation, because there's no like Marcus Jones is good. You trust Andy Borgos, you trust Fairbairn. Like there's nothing here that we're glossing over.
I will say in a game where there's probably going to be just a lot of like defenses are just choking the other team out and like flipping the field a lot. Having the better punt return game and kick return game actually probably does help you a little bit. I don't know if it's like, maybe that comes out in the wash with how much better Kaimi Fairbairn is as a kicker. And like, you need a few less yards to get into range and stuff like that. But I actually do think that something like that could flip in, kind of like you were talking about earlier, in a game that should be really close.
Yeah. You know what? Because there's a little bit of a chance, and so I just have to hope and cross my fingers that we do get this, of snow. And
Mm.
I don't think Houston is your typical dome team that we would see for years that are playing AstroTurf. We're like, oh, they can't play in the elements. Like they're tougher than you. Okay. So like a little snow is not going to discourage D'Amico Ryans and company. Right now, the weather forecast is 25% for snow, high of 38 during the daytime. And maybe that invites a little bit of wetness, not a huge amount of winds. And then maybe some snow as we get a little bit later. So like look, special teams that could absolutely factor in. Drake May with the weather, different games tell a different story with the precipitation. Not good in Tampa for sure, but then was fine in the wind against, mostly against the Chargers, and then before that the Dolphins. Like we'll see, but I don't know, man. We need some snow football somewhere. I don't know what the deal is in Denver and with the Bills, but the
I mean,
aesthetics are
Chicago
pretty good.
maybe.
Chicago, oh yes, of course,
Potentially. It's definitely gonna be cold enough. Whether or not it actually precipitates, who knows, but it will be cold enough.
yeah. How is Mays doing with all the stadium nonsense that they have there? Because I don't call me crazy. I don't like the stadium, but the location makes up for everything about the Bears and how they should play outside forever, as all football teams should.
I think he and every other Bears fan is so preoccupied right now with trying not to lose their minds about convincing themselves that they can beat the Rams that they don't even care about what's going on with the stadium.
Yeah, totally fair. All right, where can we find you? I know you're at Blue Sky at QB Class with K. And what else is going on?
Yeah, I mean, that's mostly it. And then obviously on the Athletic Football feed, our podcast, we recorded our preview today, so it'll be out Friday. And then both Robert and I are doing weekly YouTube videos. I did one on the Broncos defense a week ago. This week it'll be how Caleb beat the Packers. So that's mostly what I got going on my side over here.
Oh, what we didn't do is make game picks. What do you got?
Oh, I
Uh-oh.
okay, I'm sorry. When I get into games like this where I truly can't decide, I just let my North Star be which unit do I think is the best. And it's pretty obviously the Houston Texans defense. And so I'm going to ride or die with D'Amico Ryans. I
Totally
don't feel good
understand.
about it given Houston's offense, but that's where I land.
It's funny diving deeper into this game. Like I said, it just come back around to the cliche analysis of like if CJ Stroud screws up even half as much as he did against Pittsburgh and Drake May can just steer clear out of trouble, I think the Patriots outlast Houston and I think they win. And what's given me more confidence, because I was leaning Houston pretty hard at the beginning of the week, is this flip of Christian Gonzalez is not going to be out. He's going to play. And
Mhm.
Nico Collins takes away so much of what they want to do. Bill Barnwell gave out the stat that CJ Stroud has a QBR over 80 when targeting Nico Collins, and it's under 60, 57 point something when he's looking at everybody else. That's such a swing that if the Patriots are going to play more of a high variance game defensively, it's not that I trust them implicitly to, shut down the Texans offense, because I don't. But I do trust that that will allow for a higher ceiling for them, meaning more
Mhm.
turnovers, more sacks, and give them a better chance to offset what will be a deficit for their offense against the Texans defense. So 2019, something in that vicinity where I think they got to stop late against CJ Stroud, and May has a couple spectacular plays, but it is a slog. Like it is a pick all your boxing cliches and analogies and like old tired stuff, slobber knocker, slugfest, all of this stuff. But I know Nico Collins really hurts for me if I'm Houston, and Christian Gonzalez being able to just lock down whoever's across from him is a big boost.
And I think the last thing I'll say too, I think this is probably me just I want to see the Houston Texans defense play more because like Drake May is going to have a 15-year career and he's going to do this all the time. Like I truly think he's incredible.
Mm.
Defense like this is so hard like to capture it in a bottle that I just want to see as much of it as we can get.
Do you have any historical comp? I asked this of Josh McDaniels, which knew he wasn't going to answer, but in the event that he was like, "This is the best defense I've ever seen," you want to know that. I this isn't there for me, but just they're daring in terms of it's like Seattle level back in the day, 12 years ago. Of we're gonna line up, we're gonna play cover three, and we're gonna kick your ass. Like that amount of just simple confidence in scheme is what reminds me of Seattle, who I still think was better. But there are shades of this, right?
I'm trying. Who do I really think is better?
So it's that close for you.
I think it's that. I actually would say the 2015 Broncos are probably the best I've ever
Oh,
seen.
true, true,
That
true.
defense I think was completely insane. I would say this Houston defense is at least on the level of the Legion of Boom to me.
Legion was wow.
Yeah.
Damn. Oh man, I can't wait for the YouTube comments that are like 85 Bears, 2000
Oh,
Ravens,
geez.
and I'm like,
Yeah.
I remember the 2000 Ravens. I did not study their tape. Watched a little bit of Seattle and the Broncos, but that's for another day. All right, you got to go. Appreciate you stopping by. Can't wait to have you again. Hopefully, see you at the Super Bowl. And for folks who you know want to catch up on whatever the hell else is going around the NFL, I don't have it here, but you can find it at the Athletic Football Show. And this is great as always, my man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.